to have you, brother, Maurice Fitzgerald.
Man,
You know,
man, it's good to be in living and able to do this. You know, it's a blessing to be,
yeah,
still at it. It's all good.
yo, man,
You know,
I've been a quiet fan of yours. I'm gonna put it like
Mhm.
that, for a long time,
Mhm.
man, because I think we probably started playing around this, well, maybe on records around the same time. We're gonna get into
Mhm.
that, but man,
Mhm.
you were just on so many records. As soon as I posted the flyer of you
Mhm.
in my inbox,
Mhm.
and it was just blowing up. So let's dig in, man. I wanted one of the questions that,
Mhm.
because there's a lot personally. You and I know each other through the industry and
Mhm.
business, right?
Mhm.
Been doing records and stuff
Right.
for a long time, but
Mhm. Mhm.
personally, I want to know who Maurice Fitzgerald
Mhm.
is. We know your
Mhm.
music, man. We're gonna listen to some. We know
Mhm.
you play, but I
Mhm.
want to know. I want to know who was that little kid, man, at 9 years old, man, at 10 years old, and fell in love with music. Give me a little bit of that story.
Well, my love for music came, pretty early, like most kids coming to church, growing up in church and just kind of hearing music or whatever. But the love affair for music started when I was a shorty, when I was like probably 10 years old. My dad, he had like all, crates of records, old school, and it wasn't gospel record. My dad, he had left the church and, wasn't in church, and my mom was in church. So my dad would have all these records from like Earth, Wind, and Fire, Maze, some Led Zeppelin, some Steely Dan. Like he was like real diverse in what he liked to listen to. And he had this thing. It was like 6 kids in the crib, man. My dad would come home, be like, "Daddy got a new record." He'd bring that brown paper bag home. He's like, "Yeah, I got this new record. Yo, what's up?" And we all gathered around trying to see what album. We stared at the albums, you know what I'm saying? And he had his turntable. My dad, he was like this tech wizard, man. This dude, he fixed everybody in the neighborhood's TVs. He was like the TV fixer, man. He was the electrician, and he built speakers. He made his own speakers. So he had these big speakers he built. It was about this tall, dude, and they sounded good, dude. My dad can like launch a business off because he got into like the capacitors back in the 70s and 80s. He was talking about capacitors and components and crossovers and splitting the highs up. So he wanted his records to sound like Jokers was in the room. So, well, my love affair came in music, but just sitting on the couch with him, and we'd be sitting on the couch. It'd be me and my brother just rocking. We called it bumping. We all just bumping back and forth all on the couches, to the music. So the love started there. And through that, I didn't know what instrument I was going to play at the time. So I fell in love with drums first, of course. And I was playing drums. And when I graduated from grammar school, I was in the marching band, playing drums and things of that sort. And so what happened for me is that one day, me and my brothers, we was out in the alley playing ball. Like we used to hoop. In Chicago's, you had the alley ball, had a rim on the pole. So
Okay.
we out there hooping or whatever. And there was a family moving out of a crib, and they threw a lot of stuff away. And we looked in the corner, it was a bass guitar laying on a joint and on the garbage. But it was like the headstock was like the neck, it was cracked right where the D and the G string is. So it was only like an E and an A on there. It was like a Memphis jazz bass. So I was like, man, I'm gonna take this in the house. So dude, I took that bass in the house, I cleaned it up, it had 2 strings on it. And I had just went over to my one of my relatives' house, and they had the There Is Hope record. And my brother gave it to me. He was like, man, check this out. I hadn't, that was my introduction to like modern bass player one-on-one, like as a shorty. I mean, I heard like records in passing, but for some reason, I guess the Chicago connection, that record with Milton Bronson, I was a fan from the It's Gonna Rain and Jesus is a Rock era. But that record, man, Steve Huff was just on there humping, bro. Like, I was like, man, he got a slap tone like the Maze record, like the dude that played with Maze, and he sounded like Brothers Johnson on top of gospel stuff.
Yeah.
it mortified me. And it was this record right here, yo. There's Hope record, dog. I had this record. I keep me a turntable, bro, and I keep this stuff around me just because I just want to remember what influenced me. It was this record, yo. And I went home and I'm trying to learn all of Steve bass parts on a 2-string bass, man. I ain't had no pluck. So each note, I'm like, and I had figured out my way of playing those songs. And I ain't had no bass amp, dude. I had a tape deck with the 2 mic plug-in joints. You know, they used to have mic 1, mic 2. Mm-hmm. So I took my tape deck, plugged my bass into that. I had my daddy gave me a couple of speakers with a little head, and I was playing out of a stereo, you know, with the tape, with the album or whatever, just how I learned how to play, you know what I'm saying, through that situation. And then eventually my uncle got me a little 4-string, and then I was like, wow, okay, it makes sense. And so this cat at my church, he was the bass player at church. He started teaching me when I showed interest in bass. He started teaching me like scales and all of that stuff, and I started getting my fingers together and starting to learn, you know, how to get around the bass. And so then I had this other uncle who lived, like my other uncle, he was a Parliament head, like Funkadelic, you know, Brothers Johnson, Sly Stone. So when I go visit my grandma, my auntie's husband was like, yo, you playing bass? He had a Kramer that he set on a stand at his crib. He couldn't even play bass, but he loved bass. He loved bass players. So he's like, man, I bought this just in case I learn how to ever play, man. And so I was like, I'm learning how to play. He said, really? Well, learn these Stanley Clark School Days. And he gave me his bass. And I had that Kramer, man, with the split head. And, man, I started learning School Days. That was one of the first, like, fusion songs I learned, man. Yeah. That School Days album, I used to just stare at it with Stanley Clark with the spray paint on the joint.
Silly putty.
I just was like, yeah, man. I'm like, oh, my God. So that was my introduction to music. And it was through, you know, my mom played gospel stuff. So then she would be playing the Hawkins. She had the Tremaine Hawkins record, the Love Alive, all that stuff. So I was mortified. Let me tell you what really mortified me about bass playing in gospel. When I heard Joe Smith on the Hawkins Family record, when I tell you that was like modern bass 101. Like, dude, I couldn't believe his note choices, man. Like his double stops and the way he just, I was like, what? And he was playing chords. He was just he had so much feel, man. And that record has changed my freaking life, man. So I was like, I gotta play this record note for note. So I would just practice to these different albums, you know. And then I start hearing I start hearing Goucher playing with he was on a few records, a lot of records, LA Mass, and and I'm like, this dude tone is sound like the stuff he on Luther Vandross records, like that modern Marcus Miller bright big tone. Goucher was on there killing, so it was like, oh my God, I hope I meet that cat one day. I hope I meet Steve Huff. And so I would just be like, just trying to, back then it wasn't YouTube. So when you loved the player, you wanted to get around some music, you just would stalk their rehearsals, dude. So I would take the bus over on Central, man, to go by Milton Bronson Church. They used to rehearse on Tuesdays. But little did I know, that was only rehearsal with Darius Brooks in the choir. It was never really band on Tuesdays unless they was preparing for a record. So I'd caught the bus over there, and I'm even with that, without the band being there, I was still mortified by watching the Tommies just do what they do. And they were rehearsing the basement of Christ Tabernacle, and Milton Bronson was like, "Who's that boy back there?" Like, me? Well, be quiet, don't say nothing. Then I just sit back there and just listen, because he didn't let people sit in his rehearsals. But I just would sit back there, and I was just waiting on a chance to meet Steve Huff or Richard Gibbs. So I never really got the chance on those Tuesday nights, but they used to do these third Sunday musicals, man. And it would be the Tommies on Sundays at I think it was 3 or 4 o'clock. All of the Tommies, the recording choir would come from all their local churches, and they would come join up, and the band will come in that church, and they will play like they're recording a live album on if you can get in the building. It would be a line, bro, to just go to a Sunday every third Sunday. And man, I would get in that church and I saw them guys do what they do. It was life-changing, man. So that was the start for me, man. And I just kept practicing, kept playing. And one day I was playing at my church, and this guy named by the name of Pastor Dan Willis, he started an interracial choir amongst the apostolic organizations in Illinois, where it was white, black, Hispanics all joined up to form this big mass choir. And they would have rehearsals on Tuesday nights at his church out in like the suburbs or whatever. So he was looking for like all these musicians and band members. So it was like 3 or 4 bass players, 3 drummers, 2 organists, 2 keyboard players. Everybody's taking turns and switching off and all that, while we prepared to try to be a recording choir. So Dan had so Darius Brooks said, hey man, look, if you're putting something together like that, you need one band, man. You need to pick one band. And so he was like, okay. So out of all those older gentlemen and all those cats, man, they chose me to be the bass player. I mean, I had to be like 16 years old, bro.
Wow.
And they broke it down to one band. So we started doing little local gigs around town, gospel fest and all of these things. And then so it was time for them to do an album. So they got signed by Ty Scott Records, and they brought in Darius Brooks and Sanchez Harley to produce the record. And so Darius did not want to use the local band, which was me and a few other gentlemen. And so how they did it was Darius said, hey man, look, we got an emergency rehearsal on Saturday. I remember it was a Saturday afternoon. I took the bus out to this church, and Darius was on the organ, all us plugged up. He said, okay, let's play Stay in a Race. That was one of the songs. I started playing, not 30 seconds of the song. Stop. Maurice, when the last time you changed your strings? I said, well, I ain't changed them in a while because, man, I bought them because I don't have no money to buy them strings now. Yeah, those strings sound terrible. You know what? You ain't ready for no record. I'm bringing in all the cats, man. Y'all not ready. Y'all, you don't even change your strings. And you ain't got the feel yet. You gotta, get there. And man, and that destroyed me, man. I went home on the bus and I got home and I cried so hard, bro. I was heartbroken. I've been playing around town all this time trying to prep to play for this record, my first record, and Darius Brooks kicked me off the record. And my mom, God rest her soul, she's in heaven now. She died a couple of years ago. Okay. She was an anointed woman, and I was back there crying and bawling. She knew how hard I was working.
Right.
She said, baby, I'm going to pray for you that God give you anointing on this bass, that nobody will be able to refuse your sound and your gift. And my mama laid hands on me and she prayed for me. And she said, I want you to go to every rehearsal that Darius Brooks and Dan Willis have with those other musicians. I want you to watch. Just go. So, man, they rehearsed during the day, man. I would go over there. They had Darius Brooks. They had Richard Gibbs on the organ. They had Al Willis on guitar. They brought in a drummer from Nashville. I think his name was Steve Brewster or something. He was phenomenal. He used to play with Bobby Jones and some other people. This guy had hair down his back. He came in with all his drum riders, and man, I mean, he was lit. They were laying that stuff. And through that rehearsal, I was like, wait a minute. I'm not ready. I see why he said I'm not ready. These dudes are killing. I mean, they were coming up with arrangements and they feel, and it was like, oh my God. And then those same songs we had played with the choir, when the choir came, it was like another level. So the choir was getting all excited, like, wow. And they was all, I'm like, these dudes are changing the room. Like, oh my God, I want to be like that. And so, man, I soaked it in and I learned so much. And through that thing, in those coming to those rehearsals, Calvin Bridges wrote a song and a couple of songs. And he said, man, you know what, Maurice, I want you to play my songs on the record. I'm going to go to Sanchez and Darius about it. He said, come to my house. I'm going to work you through the songs, make sure you know it in and out. So I would go to his crib. He was making sure I knew the songs. And I went to rehearsal. And Dan said, well, let's let him play 2 songs. And so at first they said yes. Darius came back in there. You know what? No. I don't want to have an imbalance on the record. No, you ain't ready. We ain't going to let you play. Man, I was like, oh my God. Dan Willis was like, no, we're not finna break him like that. He's gonna play these 2 songs. So he stood up for me. I played 2 songs on that first record. The guys did the rest. And man, it was a song called Shack Rack. It was a church song, and then a song called If You Believe, like I Believe. That was by Calvin Bridges. And I played those 2 songs. And man, I got through the songs. I played pocket. I stayed concentrated, and they said, "Good job." Sanchez shook my hand and said, "Maurice, I didn't think you could do it. I'm proud of you. I can see a bright future ahead." So the next year around, they gave me the entire record. They put me with Al Willis. We had a guy named Keith Howard. He used to play for Ramsey Lewis on drums. And it was Darius Brooks and Richard Gibbs and Al and all of the whole crew, and Jerome Lockett and some other local guys. And so they invited John P Kee to be the special guest vocalist on this record. So I knew that record backwards and forwards. My plan had enhanced. I had really developed in a year's time through my mom's prayer and just dedication to my instrument and just being inspired by the record before then. And so I'm playing the record, and so John Key came up to sing his song with Pastor Willis. And as he was leaving the booth, the musician pit, he said, "Young man, I've been listening to you the whole session. You sound amazing." This John P Kee, when he was at Watch Me, big heyday John P Kee.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Jesus is real, John P Kee. I say, what? He said I sound good? I was mortified. So I ain't think no more than that. So at the end of the recording, they said, "John, you and your choir come up and close this out." His choir came up, and it was just Michi and Kuhn, a 2-piece. At the time, Michi was running bass, and Kuhn was on drums.
Yeah.
They would say, "Young boy, you want to sit in with us?" So at the end of the church service, I sat in with them. I was like, "Oh, cool." And it was fun. I'm thinking, that's it, the highlight of my life. I played a record. I made my $450 off this record. And I played with John P Kee. So the next following week, I get home from school. My mom like, "Hey, baby, somebody called from North Carolina, like Jeanette. She called for John P Kee, and somebody said call him." I said, "What?" Man, John had found my phone number, called around town. It was like, "Who is that young guy playing?" He called Inez Andrews, talked to Richard Gibbs. Richard Gibbs and gave him my number. I called that office back, and Jeanette answered the phone, which is John manager to this day. She said, "John P Kee was really impressed with your plan. Do you want to come play for New Life?" I was like, "Absolutely." They said, "Well, can you get to North Carolina?" I said, "Yes." I am 70 years old. I'm like, "How do I get to North Carolina?" They ain't sending me no ticket, but they say get there because I hadn't proven myself, so I get it, So I was like, you know what? I took that $400 I got from Dan Willis, and I took a Greyhound bus down in North Carolina, man. It took forever, bro. I mean, Greyhound stop in every city. And I'm on that joint with no blanket. It's cold, it's freezing. I get down there finally, and I get in a rehearsal with Michi and Kuhn. We rehearsed for like an hour or so. And they said, "Okay, the bus is leaving, let's go." We playing at Stanley Brown church. I forgot the name of the church. He had Jeff Davis over there, Stanley Brown, all them in New York. We rode to New York from North Carolina.
Pilgrim.
And I was like, I was like, wow. That was my first John P Kee concert at that church in New York, son. And when I tell you, I was like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. So I got home, they sent me home, and during the summer, I ain't hear from them for like a few weeks. And I was like, wow, what's going on? They didn't like me? And then they called back and was like, "Yo, we want you to do the tour, come on out." And that's how it started. I spent my whole summer break touring with John, and then I was in my last year of high school, so I wasn't able to travel as much, so I had to wait till I graduate to just completely play for him. And so my mom said, "You got to graduate, and then you can do that." So after I graduated, I just went on tour straight from high school.
Now,
John P Kee, man.
Was this still with that same bass, the first bass your uncle bought for you?
No. At that point, I had got a bass called a Bass Collection. It was a company called Bass Collection. It was a 5-string joint. It was not a mid-level bass, but it's kind of like almost like the Ibanez Sound Gear kind of joint. But I had it gutted and put some Bartolini's in it with some electronics. So the wood wasn't nothing, but it had a bite. Back then, it was all about, I got some bite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, low end was like, but I had
Right.
So I played around town with that bass until I was able to like afford something else. I think my next real bass weapon, I got a Padula 6-string. And that's what I played on the Show Up video. That was my first video with John, was Show Up. You know what I mean? And my first recording with John, I played bass. I played Show Up on bass on that record. And that was huge because that song was so huge, man. And he took me, we was on the road, he wrote the song on the road, and he told Michi, when we get back to Carolina, take Young Boy, and still they call me Young Boy. They call me Young Boy, and they call me Dan Willis, the guy I used to play for. Hey, Dan Willis, take Dan Willis to the studio and record Show Up. So I recorded that song, man. And after that, some time passed. I think Michi left and went on to do some other things. And
that was
eventually
that was the New Life Community Choir. One of the really early albums, the black cover, and they like in a white circle.
Yeah.
So you did.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I did that record. I played a couple of songs on that record because Wash Me was the record previously.
And Show Up was one of them.
And Show Up was the record, the title cut, the title album that I did. And Show Up was the cut that I did.
Which bass was that? That was that collector bass?
That was that bass collection, man. That was that bass collection with the Bartolini.
Listen, if
it had to be like 92, 93, baby.
This is incredible, man. So you showed up.
Man, dude, that was my first national like recognition playing on a gospel record.
My
I mean, I did the Dan Willis's, but they didn't have that big launch. It was like, man, who was the cat playing Show Up? Man, who was the young cat? The little buzz started developing then, but what took it over the top when we added the video to it, and people could put a face to Maurice Fitzgerald, you know what I mean? And at that point, we had a couple of transitions in the band, like as far as personnel changes. Michi had stepped away and was doing some other stuff, and we brought in my boy Ivan Powell, rest in heaven, man, which is Doobie Powell's uncle.
That's right.
And Ivan was a funky dude, man. That dude could sing and he could play some keys. He brought this whole Connecticut, New Yorkish kind of chord changes. He was sweet with it. That Doobie, from them Powells, they got another kind of funk in their blood, bro.
Yeah.
And so IP came in, and IP was a fan of John. He would be at all the concerts, and he would be in the audience like, pull that string. Ah! He'd be like rooting me on from the audience, you know what I'm saying? Hit that low B. Ah, you're killing me. And we became friends, man. He came out and we rehearsed. And then we had Liddell Abrams who came in. We met Liddell in Virginia. He was going to Hampton down there, man. He was playing with this artist named Earl Bynum at a concert, man. He was in there killing. So when Coon stepped away, he went and played with Donald Lawrence, and Nietzsche went back to Philly and was doing some other stuff. And we brought Liddell and IP, and it was Eric Bryce on guitar on the DVD. And so
yeah,
John put us in. He had a John on real estate, so he put us in a couple of a crib. So y'all gonna live there and y'all gonna rehearse there.
Wow.
He told Brian set up a whole setup in the bottom of this crib. So in the bottom of the crib, we had like the whole band set up, and then we slept upstairs. So we would get up, eat, wake up, and we just rehearse and put the whole Show Up record together. He wanted us to live together and play together, and we just became brothers and friends, man. You know what I'm saying? And just put that whole show together for the Show Up DVD, which was VHS at the time.
Right.
And I had went home to Chicago and I bought a Padula bass. It was a black joint, man. It was nice with a maple neck, had some big soap bar Bartolini's. It was a bigger sound than what I typically had on the Show Up record. I was like, oh man, it was a 6-string because, dude, I started seeing cats playing 6 strings. I was like, oh man, that was the thing to like get into, you know what I'm saying? So, man, I got on that DV on that joint, and then the rest started kind of just happening after that, man. Just national recognition from that situation. And then John, whatever record he was producing at the time, he would always have us all recording. So we started doing all the inner city mass choirs with him. He put me on Vanessa Bell Secret Is Out album. And then what ultimately led to me having a relationship with Vanessa, where she called me to do Desires of My Heart record, which is, to me, one of her best live records of all times, man.
Wow.
Me, Mark Taylor, her son, her nephew, Myron Bell on drums, Earl Wright on keys, Gerald Hatton on colors. And man, it was phenomenal. We did it at Marvin Winans Church. They got this joint, man. You got to probably play it. It's called Free. On Vanessa record, man. And I felt at that point, man, I was just getting my recording chops on. And I got to go back to John P Kee. I got to rewind. John P Kee was the best thing that ever happened to my musical career, bro. I say he is my father in music, literally, because it wasn't no nice love that he showed musicians in the sense like he didn't baby us. He said, hey, yo, I come from a school where, man, you ain't got to worry about no back line and no sound checks, man. We gonna make it happen. Plug up and play. Let's get it. You know, because John, you know, we would be rolling into town, man. We didn't make most of the sound checks. You know, if we did, he just like, go on stage and hit. We'll get you right. Don't be complaining about what's on stage. Plug through anything. He was just a tough love. Make it happen. And it made you tough, man. It made you musically want to go out there and just be excellent. You know what I mean? And his shows were just banging, you know what I mean? Because John was that he was like the football coach of us. You know what I mean? He developed me into like the bass player that I am today. You know, he was a big part of my life. He gave me the national platform. Like, I wouldn't be playing for none of these big artists or nobody if it didn't become Dan Willis. You know, first, like, my mom praying for me in that room in my crib on Jackson Street, which gave me God gave me that favor. Dan Willis, who introduced me to John. John just launched me to the world. And that's how all the Fred Hammonds and everybody in the music industry I played for was through that relationship with John P Kee.
And you've played for a whole lot of, man, you probably played for about 70-80%, man, of the mainstream gospel music artists. And so, and only you know the ones that weren't mainstream. I mean, you've done that much work of mainstream records. Only God knows how many times you've been in a recording studio, this church over here, they doing a record, this group over here is recording. So you went from John P Kee to Vanessa, and that's big prop. John P Kee always struck me as that kind of dude, because when I was traveling with the late Timothy Wright, we would do some shows, and he was on it. And a lot of times it was just Michi, and you know, and that was in the early '90s. And John P Kee, when John P Kee and Timothy Wright were on the same bill, the promoters might as well just sit down and don't watch the clock, because we're gonna be rocking that house. Oh, them two.
When I tell you, bro, those were some. I was on a couple of them shows in my early years with Timothy Wright and John, and then the Haynes years. Oh my God, John would be like, "How much is overtime? I'm gonna pay it because I'm not getting off this stage. I'm gonna rock this joint out." So Jeanette, get some money. We're gonna pay the union. We're gonna keep this joint, and people going crazy. Don't man, tell them that was some of the best days and concerts of all times.
Come on, I'll tell you a funny story, man. We were in, I don't know, it might have been, I don't even remember, man. I think it was in Chicago. John P Kee, Tim gives John P. They like fighting over the mic. John trying to tell him, keep it. They don't want to hear me, keep it. Tim said, man, you take this mic. So John takes the mic, comes out on stage. John P Kee comes over to us and is directing us while we still playing. With so much and so crazy. So finally we end the song. The band's like, come on, y'all, let's just end the song. So we end the song. And John P Kee says, he says to the promoter, he said, y'all do me a favor. Don't ever put me behind this man again.
Wow. Ain't that something, man?
And
Timothy Wright.
And then John P Kee destroyed the place.
Yeah, he destroyed it. Man, let me tell you, those guys, everybody was headliners. It was just about, it was a hard thing for promoters to decide. You know, you had Timothy Wright, you had John, you had Haynes. Oh my God. Then you had on the quartet set, the Cantons had just dropped.
Oh, that's
the Canton Spirituals was wrecking, closing out. You know what I'm saying? So you had all these closers, you know what I'm saying? The Tommies, and it was just hard, bro. You know what I'm saying? So that day was phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? And I remember those days as a young guy going from city to city. Like, we just, with John, we'll go from arenas, and then John would find churches in between our arena shows.
With some fish.
He had Jeanette. He said, Jeanette, find me a little hole in the wall church that don't never have concerts. Book them all in between my New Yorks and my DCs and my. So we'll do arenas, saying that John, like, find me a gym. We're gonna play ball. And we play ball to the middle of the night until the next morning. Get on a bus and do the same thing over and over and over. So when I tell you, man, that was like the best time of my life, dude. Like, it was hard, dude, because it wasn't no polished bunk beds, and we all in sleeper buses, and we chilling and went to a room. That day didn't exist. You know, man, dude, it was the band here. They passing out keys. They're like, okay, singers, alto, sopranos, the band key. The band key could have been 6 Negroes. You know what I'm saying? 2 in the band, one down there, one down there, one down there. You know what I'm saying? 2 on the floor. We need some towels. Bring it up to 203. We need towels. And so it was like we became, that made us brothers. We had a tight brotherhood because we lived in the trenches together. You understand what I'm saying? We on the bus, it's like, hey man, it's my time to turn and lay on the floor, man. If you want to stretch out, you ride from Detroit to LA, man, I need to lay on this floor. So no, it ain't your turn. You get the Detroit trip, you get the Michigan trip or whatever, and we have to take turns seeing who get to lay on the floor on the bus. We wasn't riding on sleepers. We on sit-ups. You know that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't this polished thing. So it made you tough, man. You had to be. Some guys, they couldn't make it. They was like, oh, you know what? This ain't for me.
Right.
And God bless you. But I thank God for those kind of things, because it made you appreciate the better times, and it made you tough and made you just resilient in your music and your mind. John he was amazing, man, in that sense. I look back on it. I didn't quite understand it when I was younger, but I appreciate it to the highest level right now with John.
You can't even put a value on that.
I can't put a value on what that man, how he blessed me. I love that dude.
Yeah.
Free, but you free indeed.
That's it, right?
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the
Little
part.
sister wrote this, Margaret Bell. Come on, give it to her. Margaret Bell Byers. Struggles we face each day. Sometimes we lose our way. Each moment that passes by, longing for reasons why. The problem that seems so great, defeat is the final phase. Not knowing what else to do, but I know he'll bring me through. I know that I'm free. Yes, I'm free. You lose the ties that were binding me. I'm free. Look at me. I'm free. I'm free. Oh, I want you to know, since fear has been let go, no one can hinder me. Here's how the story goes. The peace that I have inside, the joy that I can't describe, this feeling of ecstasy, the love that has raptured me. You know that I'm free. Yes, I'm free. You loose the ties that were binding me. I'm free. Can't you see? I'm free. I'm free indeed. I feel like I'm floating on clouds above, soaring so high with the one I love.
Woo!
Yeah. Back in the 90s, baby.
It's killing, man. That's the Padula on that record?
No, man, that's the Warwick. I had got a Warwick bass. It was the one with the
he was jumping around, man.
single humbucker. It had one single humbucker pickup. It was like a brown color joint. And it had like almost like a Music Man thing on it. You know what I mean? Because of the position of the pickup. And,
Right.
John P Kee bought me that bass, man, actually. I went to a music store. I was messing around with the Warwick bass. I was like, man, it's kind of cool. And I started messing around with it. And I actually recorded the Strength record with the Warwick. When we got ready to do the DVD, I traded that joint in and got that blue Fender Jazz that I'm playing, the Jazz Deluxe. And that's the blue Jazz Deluxe that I played on the Strength DVD.
Wow.
Yeah, because that new Fender that came out, I went to a music store. My boy was like, "Yo, we gonna put that Warwick down, man. Get this bite like Marcus, baby." I was like, "What?" I said, "Man, my Warwick kind of bang." He said, "It's another kind of bang." You know, back then you had a whole bunch of bread, so you just trade it off to the next bass. You didn't like buy it.
Right.
I gotta trade this in, yo.
Right.
I ain't making that kind of bread. And I gave him that Warwick, and I got that blue Fender Deluxe, man. And dude, that thing was biting up a storm, man. It had big presence, and that's how my Fender thing started getting into play. You know what I mean?
Record. But a lot of people thought you came on the scene with Fred.
No. Fred was. I didn't get with Fred till after I got with. I started playing with Marvin Sapp.
Right.
Marvin Sapp put out his solo record, his second solo record. And I think it was produced by Percy Beatty. Yes, it was. It was actually produced by Percy Beatty, with Trust in God and all of that stuff on there. And Steve Huff recorded that record. He did the live album, but Steve went into like producing, so he wasn't going to travel with Marvin Sapp. So my boy Ray Beatty became the MD for Marvin. He was playing drums, and me and Ray, we grew up in the same neighborhood. We were just boys. And Percy Beatty lived right down the street from my crib. You know, Percy was writing all them big songs for the Tommies.
Yeah.
And me and his brothers, they were older than me, but we all went to the same grammar school. Their dad was the security guard at the school, so I thought they was like, I'm like, there go the Beatties, they're like stars. And so Ray Beatty put me on with Marvin Sapp, and I started playing with Marvin in between playing for John P Kee. So when after I left John, I was playing for Marvin, and then I started playing for Dawkins and Dawkins. They had came out with a joint, and somebody hooked me up with them, and I was traveling. I was the MD. Terrence Palmer made a transition out of the camp for a while to just kind of pursue some other things. And I got to go back to how I met Fred. I was with Marvin Sapp at Shane Park in Detroit. Fred had Pages of Life, Spirit of David was all that out. And I was going through like a really, really tough time, man. I was just trying to figure out my life. I was dealing with some depression, man. I was just sad. I just didn't know something was going on with me, man. I didn't know what it was.
Okay.
And that Pages of Life record, man, had brought me through so many things, man, just by listening to it. The words of the record, the Spirit of David. And I saw Sean, I said, man, if I ever meet Fred Hammond, who was my all-time hero on bass and commission, was just like the bar set here. And I saw him at Shane Park, and I said, hey, Fred, I wanted to meet you. I'm playing with Marvin Sapp. He said, oh, you play with Marvin? Cool. I said, I'm playing bass. I said, I used to play with John, you know what I mean? And he said, you play with John? That's you don't show up? I said, yeah, man, I like that song. You sound good. And I said, well, Fred, I just wanted to tell you, man, that, you know, man, your record brought me back to life, man. I was dying, man. I was sick. And that thing brought me back to God, and just really helped me, man. And man, it was all these people waiting to talk to Fred. He said, hey, yo, hold up. And he went to the side with me, and Fred prayed with me, man, and said, man, I wish blessings on your life, man. None but love and respect. And then I went on my own merry way. A year later, Terrence Palmer left the camp. And Fred was like, man, I don't know who I'm going to get to play bass. You know, let's think about it. So it was a bunch of cats putting their bid in.
Which is an important role for Fred.
Yep. And he said, you know what? Where's the cat that played for John P Kee. I met him in Shane Park, and I prayed with that dude. I need to find him.
Wow, he remembered that.
Yep. Eric Dawkins was like, I know him. He played for us. That's Maurice Fitzgerald. Fred got my number from Eric Dawkins and called me at the crib. Yo, this Fred Hammond. I'm like, no, it ain't. I hung up. I'm like, man, one of my boys playing. He called back. Man, this Fred, don't hang up, man. Don't hang up. I was like, yo, this dude sound like Fred. He was like, look, we met up in Detroit, man. He said, man, I personally wanted to call you and ask you to come join my band. You want to come play for me? I had just started playing for John, and man, I was about to go get a regular job because Marvin record was new. I wasn't gigging that much. I had just got the call to work at the cable company, man. I was finna go start like working with the cable company because I didn't know what my next move was. And Fred called me. And man, Fred, like, man, come to Detroit next week. I'm gonna have Marvin McQuitty call you. That was my man. Love you, Marvin. He gonna give you the schedule or whatever. They flew me into Detroit. And man, I got to Detroit. And man, when I tell you, Fred did everything like you were playing for an R&B band. I had never played in the secular world, but I had heard about how the level was. And Fred had his own studio. He had his own rehearsal hall. He had basses all over the studio and all. It was just next level. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, whoa. He had his own tour bus with a wrap on it. Like, I'm like, with beds on it. I'm like, I'm finna tour with this cat. I'm playing with Fred freaking Hammond. These are people I dreamed and watched as a shorty, man.
Yeah.
And God was just orchestrating my path, man, to these people, man. And I became Fred's bass player, man. So when you see me playing on the Live in Vegas was my first debut to the world that I was playing with Fred. I had did the tours, but for people to see it, we did live in Las Vegas, man. And man, if you watch it, the passion I was playing with is because I was so grateful to God to be in another big situation that I did not put myself into myself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Just unworthy of it, and God just planted me in there with that prayer back to my mama. I go back to that situation when I got kicked off the record, and my mom was like, yo, you can do it, gotta do it. And here I am with Fred freaking Hammond.
Live in Vegas.
Live in Vegas recording with my dear brother, Marvin McQuitty, rest in heaven.
With Fred.
Tommy Walker.
With Fred.
Daryl Dixon, who also passed away on guitar. Noel Hall on keys. On second keys, Aaron Lindsay was playing colors. Israel Houghton playing acoustic guitar right next to me. Israel hadn't even
I know.
He wasn't even like Israel yet.
I know.
He wasn't that guy yet. You know what I'm saying? Israel, he was on the tour with Fred. Me and him was roommates.
Yeah, more horns, right?
Yeah, more horns joined the group. And so Israel, it's a funny story I gotta tell this.
Tell it.
Israel and Aaron Lindsay hooked up because I used to like to play 2K in the room with all the guys. We played to the end of the night. We played basketball. You got Israel like, yo, I want to go to sleep. All these video games, yo, I'm trying to sleep. I'm like, dude, this is what we do. Maybe you should switch rooms. Him and Aaron Lindsay switched rooms, and they started talking about his new record and his new project, and they became tightly brothers and started working on Israel's big record because I was playing video games. and it morphed that connection.
Man, let me say so you go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, man. So it's a crazy thing, man. So I'm on that DVD playing Live in Vegas, man, with just a gratefulness to God. And I'm just every note I'm playing, I'm like, oh God, I'm just thank you. You know what I mean? I'm here in Vegas playing for Fred Hammond. It's live on pay-per-view, and my family at home watching me. So I'm like, show up. Fred Hammond. Man, at that point, I had a PV Cirrus. It was a 5-string PV Cirrus. That joint had bite, not quite like a Smith, but a replica of it.
Let me tell you, one of my favorite songs ever from Fred Hammond did on that joint.
And come on, go get your vest, zip it up, and come on. Go get your shoes. Go get your words. As a matter of fact, go get everything. Come on! Or you might as well just come on. good and perfect purpose was designed to keep me to the place where He needs me to be. Say, I want my destiny. Come on, say, can't settle for having nothing short of what you made me to be. You want me to be. I want it all. As I look around, my mind's telling me, gotta be my destiny. Gotta be. Not called to sit upon the shelf. It's not done for forever. With the time let's waste not out on selfish reasons. We must seek to please Him first. Find His will upon the earth. They look back on death to birth. They say they sing now. So we must serve Him who brought us and is able to keep us together in the presence of His glory. We find for our lives. If good and perfect purpose was designed to keep us in the place where He has need of thee. Do you really want your destiny? Come on, say, can't settle for having nothing short of what you made me to be. 'Cause I want it. As I look around, the time is right now. My mind's telling me I gotta be my destiny. Gotta be. Go get your head, come on. Go get your work, come on. Go get your shoes, come on. Go get your work, come on. Say, hold on. Give up now. Journey is hard. Say, let's go in the word and gonna see it through. Say, say, fight. To obtain. So we will. Let's go. Say, I really want my destiny. Come on, say, I want it. I receive it. When I need it. The will to come from me. Come on, say, yeah. Receive it. No doubt about it. Say, come on it. I receive it from my life. Really need it. The will. Find it. Can't live without it. Say, no doubt about it. Say, will come. Come on. Come on. I really need it. Will come from me. Say, hold on. Let go. Give up no rejection. His heart and Lord. Trust in the Lord. Believe in the word that it's gonna see you through. Believe in the word that it's what they gotta do. Believe our God is able.
Bro.
Oh,
Man.
Yo, man.
Oh man.
Yo, let me tell you. So much props for that because Fred Hammond, all right? We know Fred Hammond, okay? Nastiest, one of the nastiest, funkiest bass players and songwriters and composers and just artists. And so for you to stand up there, that was probably at the time your biggest gig of your life in Las Vegas, and had to recreate the Fred Hammond. You put your foot in that song, bro.
Man, thank you, bro.
The only way I know it's not Fred playing
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
just because of the tone of the bass. It don't
Mm-hmm.
sound like Fred's bass.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Other than that, you close your eyes, it's like, ooh, how is Fred singing feeling like that? And then you open your eyes and go, oh, he's not. He like, who is that?
Man, you know what, man? Like playing for him, I had studied his playing and studied his vibe and his melodic sense and his aggression on bass through the commission years. I thought Fred was just an innovator for gospel music, playing with from a group setting, bringing the tonalities to bass with Ken Smiths and Tobiases and bright tones and playing melodic figures through low end structures and stuff like that. I was like, man, Fred is dope. And so playing for him, I wanted to be me, but I still wanted to respect how he heard bass as well. You know what I mean? Like I said, I was overjoyed to be in that scenario, and I just wanted to play from my soul, bro. You know what I mean? And man, it's just I'm hearing my brothers playing with me, Marvin McQuitty, man, who we lost a time ago, and Big Tom and Daryl Dixon. I want to just give a shout out to them brothers who passed away at a young age, man. I lost 3 brothers from that camp.
Wow.
And just a joy to be able to tour with them and play with those guys, man. Just a historic big place in my life playing for Fred, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
I could tell it meant a lot to you, even as you talking now.
Mm-hmm.
Gets emotional to this day, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And he introduced me to having multiple bass. He said, man, you need more than one bass, man. I came in with one bass, bro. Oh man, you need tones for this, you need a tone for that.
Yeah.
Mix your tones up.
He's right.
And I started getting into having multiple basses. Not to just say I had all these basses. Each bass had a certain character and tone. He said, if your recording game is gonna be sweet, you switch it up. You know what I mean? And he had everything. You know what I mean? So that was the buy more basses kind of situation. Get more endorsements through Fred Hammond. You know.
Reese, you were influencing so many people, man. I mean, I know you said there was a time you were going through a tough time, and it's so incredible that you would share that story, because you were it's like you were at a tough time, but you were at an incredible time in your life at the same time, you know. And it probably felt like a pull in the struggle, and you know what that pull in the struggle was, right? You were blessing so many people, and there was a pull and struggle to try to stop you from blessing as many people as you were blessing, and you didn't even know it, man. So a lot of times when we as musicians and professional musicians have those moments, man, people are looking at us like, man, you guys are on top of the world, man, and you smiling at the show or at the concert, you know, but then you get back in your car and still dealing with this pull and this struggle. That's a spiritual fight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
it
it wanted to
is.
stop you from blessing people like Justin Raines. You know, Justin Raines, and like even right now, he's watching and he's saying how important him listening to you was.
Wow.
You were ministering to him on bass, and he wanted to be like you. Whenever he heard your
Wow.
records and the records that you were playing on, he said every record that he listened to,
Wow.
look at the credits and saw your name. So you became one of them guys. So while you going through your struggle, here you are blessing this young man like he's on another side of the country saying he's going through something. He's saying probably to himself, what would Maurice do right now?
Didn't even know it. Had no idea, man. And sometimes we as musicians get lost in that, man. We have all of this stuff, we blessing people, and people looking up to us, and man, and we sometimes make bad decisions that will cause people to be like, oh man, he ain't nothing. I heard this, or he did that, or blah blah blah. And I wasn't perfect, man, through this by no stretch of the imagination. And it's only by the grace of God that I'm sitting here now, and you know, I've made some mistakes, man, and I'm grateful to God. Through that, my legacy still reign forth and shine forth through, because we just vessels, man. We don't know what the responsibility God had put on us. We just love to play and we love blessing folk. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so for me, man, I'm just glad that I'm here today, and I can say that my past was my past. My life now is, I love God and I love music, and I cherish and I look at how my life has blessed so many people. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
now it's a responsibility that as a grown Maurice Fitzgerald that I have to take and say, hey, this is something God gave me, cover it. Be careful. You know what I mean?
Right.
Cherish this gift. You know what I mean? I look at, man, I got guys calling me from all in different countries. When social media became in play and more access to me, man, guys has inboxed me and say, hey, man, I only play bass because I watched you all my life. I watched this DVD, and everything you did, I wanted to be like. From different countries, from Japan, from Africa, from everywhere, people have seen me play. And man, the thing about it was, man, I wasn't trying to be like an acrobat on bass. You know what I mean? For the sake. I was like, I love to play. I love the way music made people feel. I was influenced through the Gouchers and the Steve Huffs and Joel Smiths and how they made me feel. I wanted to be part of that family. Like you can play 3 notes versus 10, and it'll move a room and make people feel a certain. You know what I'm saying? Not saying there's nothing wrong with playing a bunch of notes. I'm not saying that, but I was like on this whole groove tone, dial into the spirit of whoever you playing for. Be important to the sound. You know what I mean?
Right.
That was my goal as a bass player. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I feel like you fell in place in any situation. I think that's what was great about you. And that's why you got to be on so many albums, because, and then you were consistent. So people knew what they were going to get. You know what I mean? And you seem like, now I don't know this, but I'm going to go on a limb here, and it's not much of a limb, by a whole full pitch, because I'm sure I'm correct here. You took music real serious. So if somebody gave you a song to learn,
I was going to learn it. I was going to play it, man. And I was going to remember it. I studied, man. Like if I had an assignment, a record coming up the whole week before, I'm prepping as much as I'm possible. So when I got into rehearsals, nobody just screaming notes out to me. Oh, B flat, C sharp. You know, somebody got to guide me through a whole show or guide me through rehearsal. Right. It was like, no, I need to know what's going on structurally so that now I'm playing for feel. I'm not playing for notes and somebody calling. You can't be effective musically if you don't know where you're going, note-wise. You know what I mean? So I always tell musicians, I don't care how cold you are, know the material. You do your best. You express yourself a lot more when you know the changes. You know what I mean?
Changes, because you could go from a solo artist, Vanessa Bell, to Fred Hammond. He's a solo artist too, but he had he had his group, and even in the choir setting, and bigger bands, more aggressive bands. It seems like no matter what the situation was, you knew how to really sit in, like when you did the Larry Trotter stuff. You know, that was another well-produced record. Bunch of great musicians, great songs, and man, and you, like you said, you weren't trying to be an acrobat on the bass, but you played your role. You know what I mean? On that, which was another great record, great session. I'm gonna play a little piece of this song. This is the Larry Trotter. Check this out.
Put your hands together like that. Keep making a way for me. I don't deserve. Clap your hands, everybody, right there. You made a way. You keep on making a way for me.
worthy, but I messed up, but he keep on blessing me.
Sometimes I'm not worthy.
Sometimes I'm not worthy.
But you still bless me.
You keep blessing and making a way.
Over and over again.
Over and over and over again. I don't deserve it.
I don't deserve it.
Sometimes I'm not worthy.
I'm worthy.
How many know you're not worthy? But he keeps on doing it.
You still bless me.
You still bless me over.
Over and over again.
Can I testify here? Hey, when I was sick,
You heal me.
when I was troubled,
Brought me out.
when I was down,
Pick me up.
you made a way. When I was lost, hey,
Found me.
in sin,
Saved me.
when I was broke,
You fixed me.
you made a way. When I was sick,
You heal me.
when I was in trouble,
Brought me out.
when I was down,
Pick me up.
you made a way. Hey, when I was lost and in my sin, you saved me. When I was broken into pieces, you made a way. You made a way. Hey, you made a way. You made a way. You made a way. Made a way, yeah. Lord, you made a way, yes. Yes, it is. So glad you made a way. So glad you made a way. Anybody glad about it tonight? Lord, you made a way. I just want to testify. I gotta tell somebody. Lord, you made a way. I just want to give you all the glory. I just want to give you all the praise. Lord, you made a way. So glad you did. So glad you did, Lord. You didn't have to do it, Lord. But I'm so glad you did. You healed my body, Lord. So glad you did. They hung him high, yeah. They stretched him wide. For you and me, Lord. He bled and died. He didn't have to do it, Lord. But I'm so glad he did. Anybody glad about it? So glad God did. After all I did wrong, he still made a way for you. After all I did wrong.
Let me tell you something about playing for Bishop Trotter, man, and playing it. I joined the church. I started playing at that church alongside of Calvin Rogers, the great Calvin Rogers.
Yes, sir.
Rick Robinson, who was writing the songs. Vashawn Mitchell was writing the songs. Calvin's father was writing the songs. And we had an in-house band, Brian Lofton on organ. So we would be at church, and these songs would be written by guys that's in the church, and we would practice the songs by playing them on Sunday mornings. So by the time we brought in the truck to record, we always did our live recordings on Sundays. Right after Sunday morning service, we'll set up the truck and come in.
That's great.
Oh yeah, man. Those records was always on Sundays, man, and it was always, we were already, guns was loaded, because we'd have been playing these songs at church to test them out on the audience. So by the time we get to playing them songs, it's all in our blood and our spirit, and we just like, and it was just this respect musically of space. Me and Calvin would map out how, and we still rehearsed we had session rehearsal, because we like, okay, we session. So church is a little more loose and freer, you know what I mean? But session is like, okay, let's cut on our Nathanese and our tight drum and machine for Romy and all that. Let's cut that on.
Thought. By the way, I made reference. I'm so glad you mentioned Nathan East, because I said to somebody, they said, where would you put Maurice Fitzgerald in the spectrum, the whole spectrum of, and just in comparison, you know, we got they like to categorize everything, gospel bass players, jazz bass players, and you know, but I said to me, Maurice would be like the Nathan East of gospel. So amazing that you just said that. And
he was one of them. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. But I want you to get back to your story. But I mean, for real, because Nathan was that guy that got called for everything. He
Everything, bro.
wasn't the
Everything.
he wasn't trying to be an acrobat on bass, but
No,
people
he
knew what
was.
you were going. So go ahead, keep it your story. Go ahead, go ahead.
So it was, yeah, Nathan was one of my big influences. So it was like the clean, polished recording Nathan. The compositions that the way he laid out Anita Baker's record. I use that as my guide to life in bass. Like lay out a record with smoothness and tonality. So me and Calvin would be in rehearsals and we're like, okay, where you at? I'm not gonna play in that space. So that's you right there. I ain't gonna do that. I got you. So it was conversations like just like you on the court, you know. Hey man, moving the lane right there. I'm right here. I'm right there. Vocals right here. So we ain't gonna live up in there. We gonna be up in here and groove and then play from our heart. And it just made the music sound like one unit. You know what I'm saying? And it just made us, you know, the space was everything. Like when I hear Parliament, I hear Boosie records, the way Boosie play in between the space and on the one, it just touches the heart. It's just like, you know what I mean? And so that was the same approach in gospel music. It was like we were influenced by the Tommies and all of that. And so we had this big choir on the south side with this band who just digging in and making music, you know what I mean? And those records just took a life of their own because of the mentality and the mindset, you know what I mean? It was an honor, man, to do that. To come off the road and still have that level of players that I played with and record records at home like that. That was amazing, bro.
Man,
good time in my life, man.
What you just said was so important, man. And it's something that people overlook. But what you said was you and the drummer, and the band does it as a whole, but you and the drummer, Calvin in particular, in this situation, would map out, you would navigate from point A to Z, but you won't just, every letter though, A, B, C, D, and on. Too many musicians, they have the right intention. They want to make the song hot, but it's a unit, so you can't make the song hot by yourself.
That's right, and that's what it is. You know, even like I tell musicians, make sure you got vocals in your ears. For me, that's the map.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's like at first the intro, at first verse, you want to chill, you want to leave that space for that melody, and we just start, you know, rising it up through there. Different inflections as the bridge happens. Like we talked about these things. You know, we be in session, like, man, you know, oh, that's the bridge. Dynamically, we hit. It was discussion. You know what I mean? It was just no plug and play and get out. He bad. It was like, let's map out this record. And so you had all these musicians sitting on their instruments. And I tell people, Calvin, he sounds so amazing on drums because he sounds like a producer. His dynamic sense with his aggression and his pocket and his ability. But he's thinking about melody and song and dynamic, how he's gonna make the song feel. That whole Joel Smith thing, you know what I mean? Like Joel was, even on drums, was that kind of navigator of that, you know what I mean? Which takes me to, let me move on from the Bishop Trotter. I end up meeting Donald Lawrence. I got called to do a record for Rodney Bryant. Donald had his band, but he needed Mel Gray couldn't do a session in Indianapolis, and they said, well, we need to get a bass player. Coon was playing drums for, I think Jeremy Haynes. Jeremy had just left. Coon was playing drums. It was Cedric Thompson, and then my boy Daniel Weatherspoon was on organ. And they called me to play bass. That was my first time playing for Donald Lawrence, and I respected him highly. I thought he had a sound in gospel music, man. It was like that Whitfield, but on something different. So that was my first time recording with him. My first recording with him was with Rodney Bryant. He's a keeper and all that stuff. That's me on bass. They didn't even put credits on that album. Ty Scott didn't. But I played bass on He's a Keeper and what's the other song? Oh Lord, we give you praise. For your goodness, for your mercy. We offer praise.
Yeah.
Nobody knew, but I mean, they knew if you know my plan. But that was that record I did with him, and from that relationship, I ended up doing Law of Confession record in Chicago when Donna moved to Chicago, and that's what I did. I Am Healed. Before Law of Confession, I did play on I Am the Healed record with him, And then we did Laws of Confession with Back to Eaton and all of that stuff on there. And you got to probably play a little bit of Back to Eaton. But that whole thing, that's how I met Donald Lawrence and got connected with him. And backstory, Kevin Bond, who was from Chicago, actually reached out to me and started bringing me on to record with him. And so I got my first session with Kevin Bond was Jackie McCullough live in Jamaica. Me, Jeremy Haynes, Al Willis on guitar, and what's my man name from LA? Jason White on keys. Jason White from LA.
White.
And that was a super band. Jeremy was like, I call him the Joel on steroids on drums. See, that dude can dance. He had that shuffle. He had that feel. So it was that West Coast sound that I had to learn how to play routes with Kevin Bond. Kevin Bond was so cold, man. You had to be his left hand. You always had to be that. You know what I'm saying? No matter what you played, make sure, like, Mom, follow me, follow my routes. Kevin, that was a whole other thing. And then we went on to do that, and then we did, Kevin and Jason called me to do both Kurt Carr records. I did Sanctuary, and I did the record right after that. I forgot the title of it. There's so many records, but I forgot the title of it. But I was in that whole camp with them doing that, and then he brought me in to do Bishop Jake's records. I started cutting Bishop Jake's live records. Through that whole camp with Kevin Bond, we was like a team. He put me on Donnie McKirkland and put me on some Yolanda stuff. And it was just crazy, man. It's just, I look up and it was like all these records.
That's what I wanted. I wanted you to, because I literally was telling somebody, like, we really can't go through all of Maurice's records. Cause
man,
we'd be on this show for 5 hours. We just can't do it. Man. But I want you to keep telling them. Name some more artists of records that you had on, because
I did the Mighty Clouds of Joy.
Really?
Coming to this house live in Houston. Yep, I got a chance to play with the great Joe Lagan, man. I couldn't believe that. I had to call my daddy when I said, Daddy, I am cutting a record for the Mighty Clouds of Joy.
Did your daddy fall out?
What? My daddy was from church. He said, what, you playing with Joe Lagan? Sanchez Harley brought me in to do that. You know what I'm saying? We got him, Marcus Cole, Darius Brooks live record. I did I said Yolanda, the Clark Sisters record, Vashawn Mitchell, Brian Culberson on the jazz tip, Mike Manson.
Yeah.
Andre Crouch. Oh man, I gotta talk about that. Well, we're gonna go back to Andre Crouch. Micah Stanley, Urban Nights. I was in Urban Nights band for a while with Ramsey Lewis. Vanessa Williams, Donald Lawrence, Bishop Kelsey in DC, Smokey Norfolk, Kirk Carr, New Direction, James Greer, Reverend Clay Evans, Gerald Albright, Marvin Sapp, The Singletons, Kim Burrell, T.D. Jakes, William Beckton. Wow. I'm trying to scroll through this. Doug Williams from the Williams Brothers. Play on his record. I don't remember all these records I played. Jackie McCullough. Sean McLemore. In the City Mass. Kim Stratton. Wow. I can't even get through all. Leon Timbo. And this other pages, that's just the name.
I want to,
some of the records.
A lot of people don't know. I mean, you did, now those are records. You also did some touring. You threw in that word, Brian Culberson. People probably like, who's that? He was he not even was, he is a huge smooth jazz artist. People don't realize all the work that you've done. You've toured with Destiny Child, right? Toured with After Seven. You know, you do tour still with the Isley Brothers, right? I had told a funny story earlier to you about when I played for Ron Isley for one hot minute. So funny story. But you've done a lot, man. And what I want to do, one of the things let me see if I could do this here.
to stop, you know, playing together. And Brian, man, that's my man, man. He allowed me to play on his records, and I wrote a song with him on his record and did stuff with him, man. It's amazing, man. That's my man, Brian Combs. Yes, sir.
How long have you?
Well, that was a fun moment. I played with Brian off and on through a stretch of like maybe 5 years at one point. You know,
wow.
I when I started doing less gospel, I went to the smooth jazz side and started playing with Brian was like my main gig, you know.
That's a
and
big
I would play with him, Mike Manson, and some other people. I recorded with Jonathan Butler, started doing stuff with him. Through my boy Mano Haynes, who was producing Jonathan's record.
Yeah.
And,
I was working with Mano.
You know, oh man, that dude is a beast. I mean, you talking about, I call him like he got the mind like Quincy Jones. He's just so progressive, man. Like his ideas, his thought process. He changed my bass playing in a lot of ways too, man, as far as thinking versatile and just tonality and being able to dip in and out of different styles and challenging myself in other areas. With certain records, I hear it back, I'll be like, dude, that's me on bass. And not from a crazy chop standpoint, just from a perspective and concept perspective. You know what I mean? That joint that record was everywhere, man, as far as concept wise. And that's how Andre Crouch was back in the day. I would hear Andre Crouch back in the day in the 70s when I was a kid, like, this gospel music? Like, I'm like, man, I found out later there was Joe Sample and Abe LaBuriel and all those cats. What's the drummer name you just interviewed?
Bill Maxwell.
Bill Maxwell. He in there producing them records, and they got the top cats. I'm like, wait a minute. And so, like, that sound, man, look, wow. So, man, it freaked me out, man, to be sitting in the room in the studio and Pastor Andre Crouch sitting next to me, and he's digging my bass playing. He's digging the stuff that I'm laying down to put on his records. That was one of the highlights of my life, man. You know what I mean? And hats off to the cats that laid it for me. Like, of course, Boucher was doing all that stuff with Pastor Crouch back in the day. But for me, my experience, it was like this West Side boy playing with Andre Crouch. Wow.
Anybody that remembers the I'll Be Thinking of You album, I've Got the Best and all of that. Yo, man. Yo.
Oh yeah, man.
Listen.
Everybody say hallelujah.
It's real and it satisfies. No cheap imitation. I got the very
Oh man, I
Dude,
don't know
that
where.
whole DVD. I tell people to watch that on YouTube, man. That
Yeah.
was a musical journey of all time, man.
What was that like doing that session and when you got the call for that session? And
Oh man, it was like I ain't gonna get no sleep. I'm gonna have to like remember all this stuff. Man, cause Mano, man, he challenges you, man, to the highest. It's like we playing all that stuff, man, like no overdubs. We had to remember all the he was into transitions and
yes,
clips, and
big.
we go from one time signature to the next. And then he got these crazy lines, everybody playing in unison, and it's all making sense. It ain't even busy, it's like connected to what's happening vocally. It all connected. They were like, oh man, Mano is challenging. But it was cool, man. It was hot. So, man, dude, I've been in some situations. Wow.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
What bass were you playing on that? And what you were killing on that, man.
Thank you, bro. That was a wind bass, man, by this guy named Randy Fuller out of California, man. He made this for me back then. And, this is like a maple, crazy, exotic stuff. You know, look at the back of it. It's great piece of bass, man. There's just so many different tones in this bass. You can get a jazz tone, you can get that old toe, you can get this big tight B string, feels good. This is one of the basses I played on the Under Cross joint.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
What kind of pickups and actives are in there? Do you know?
Those are Nordstrom pickups, and
Okay.
it's his preamp. And the configuration is volume splitter. This is a active control knob where I can roll off all the active preamp and just get that old school dirt. And then it's like treble, bass, and mid. So I got all these options with this bass.
How many
it sounds?
Are you endorsed with? Are you with Win or you just?
No, I'm not. I was endorsed with them back in that time. You know what I mean? I'm not endorsed now, but I still, for certain stuff, I pull this bass out, man. But I was signed to Win Bass at one period of time. Yeah.
How many basses do you have now?
Oh man, like in the crib, probably about 15.
Wow.
That bass is all under the bed.
That's Fred Hammond's.
That's
Fred Hammond's fault.
Yeah, man. This is one of my bass mod signature series. This is by Bass Mod. This is the MF5. Crazy jazz tone. You know what I'm saying? That's that all around killer monster bass tone, man. Look pretty, but it packs a package, man. This is a killer, bro.
That's a bolt tone.
Bolt tone that. Yeah, J Bass with his pickups by Bass Mod, his preamp that he designed for me. I just got like a bunch of little toys, man, just for different tones. You you always got to keep a kin in your life. Got my
boy, that looks familiar.
It's my little Kid Smith, baby. That mug is a biter. It's a 3-knobber too, boy.
Yeah.
You know those up there. You will know all about this world, baby. It's my Reggie Young piece. I'll be trying to channel my Reggie Young.
Oh man, that looks. Hey, I
gotta show you this old beat up thing. Now this bass, man, I played on so many records. This performance bass, man. This did on Israel Christmas record, CC Wine, and this bass is toured with me on so many. John did so many records with this bass right here. It's got war scars too. It's all beat up.
Nice.
But this sucker is no joke. You know what I'm saying? And then just a bunch of other little candies. A lot of little junks I got.
Right.
To get the job done.
Right.
But those are the important pieces. A couple of them. But dude, I gotta show you this, man. I'd be remiss if I don't show you this. Dude, this company called Paoletti Guitars out of Italy.
What are they called?
Make this for Paoletti. They made this joint, man. It's made out of 150-year-old chestwood. They family own a winery, and so they started a guitar company and bass company, and they use these woods that used to be wine barrels. And the wood is so rich, man. And they put this leather Italian leather top on it, man.
Bro.
They made this for me. You ever seen some junk like this, man?
Never in my life.
And this is a roasted maple neck, man. They roasted this joint so it looks dark, but it's maple. Passive, but it bites so hard, bro. It's crazy.
Oh man, that's
crazy. Ain't it pretty? But it sounds great. I don't like basses just to have them to look at, man. They all got to have like a tone and a purpose.
Absolutely.
That fits my playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So, but that's just a couple of the joints, man. Of course, I got fenders and all kind of junk.
So what has Maurice been doing now? And even before we do that, you know, you and I talked earlier in the week, and you were dealing with the loss of a good friend. Let's talk a little bit about.
Man, I lost my buddy that I toured with. His name is Kahari Parker, man, legendary drummer. Played with George Benson. Toured with me with Destiny's Child. Played with Jeffrey Osborne, a bunch of jazz cats and artists, man. This cat, check him out. If you don't know Kahari Parker, man, look him up. Excellent person, phenomenal drummer, man. He passed away suddenly this past Saturday. And so, man, Chicago and myself has been mourning the loss of our dear brother, man. It's been like the hardest week ever because that was one of my best friends. And it just, let's put a perspective on life. We were the same age. It's just like, man, you just like, God, I thank you for every day that I'm living, walking, breathing, and that I can wake up and see my fam and just be able to just play bass and do it. It's just nothing is promised. So it's like a greater appreciation for life, man. I just thank God for his legacy and his life. And I just thank God for my legacy and that the fact that I'm still on this earth doing it. And I just thank God for that. So I just wanted to give a shout out to his family and actually to pray for Kelly Parker, who's Kahari's wife. Remember them in prayer, you know, but it's all good. This has been a tough year on all fronts, but you know, God is still amazing. Yeah, man, in my current days, man, you know, I've been touring with the Isley Brothers, man, and and that's so crazy how that came about. My boy Rodney East, who I played with different R&B bands and gospel stuff with Marvin Sapp. He actually put me on that gig maybe 11 years ago. Somebody like, oh, that's an old school gig. Who cares? No, those dudes are like legendary. They are like,
still.
You can't. I mean, they are R&B music. They are black music. You say the Isley Brothers, they are the structure and foundation of black music, bro.
To it, bro. Since you brought that up, playing for some of these smaller bands, so even as a musician on your level and with all the records you've done and the big artists you tour with, you still do some club dates, you still do some covers, you know? And when you
it'd be fun.
You better play them right, sort of like.
Yeah, man.
You killing that, man. And let me tell you, bro. It's so ironic. I did a show with Fred, with James Brown's bass player, man. You know?
Wow.
And
yeah. I met that cat.
Just a couple of he said that just a couple of weeks ago, man. So you see how this all it's crazy
how it all came full circle,
how it all comes full circle, bro. You know, Man, he'd have been proud, man, to hear you laying in that bass line like that.
Oh man, when you playing James, man, you know what it's about with that, baby. You just playing on that one, everything don't matter but that one, man.
That's it.
Yeah, man. This has been quite the journey, man. This conversation. I feel like I got so much stuff I'm leaving out, but I guess I can't get it all in an hour. So.
Well, I mean, we've been on for 2 hours now, brother. And my
wow.
I
Dude, let me tell you something, man. I got to talk about that live in Toronto, man.
Oh man,
dude, your tone and your note placements, you were killing, man. With Jason on the drums, right? Jason, that was his name, right?
Yeah.
Jason Hendricks, he was just wearing the pocket, man. And I'm like, man, what Ken Smith was that, man? It was a growl, like it was crazy, man.
Now
so me and Coon used to be riding his little pickup truck like, dude, did you hear this? We got to smash with John because these niggas is killing. What was you about to say, man?
That actually, now here's the crazy thing.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a Ken Smith bass.
That wasn't?
Nope. That on that record,
wow.
I was using an Olympic. An Olympic.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was a big Stanley Clarke fan. And so I thought, just like you think you go buy some Jordans and then you can do some 360 dunks.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an Olympic bass, and I wanted to be like Stanley Clarke. However, it was a five-string Olympic Persuader. And I wanted to save the story. People keep telling me to do a show on me, but I keep giving a lot of these tidbits out during the show.
Wow. So, man, you just blew me away with that because I thought it was Joe Smith, man.
Well, let me tell you though. Let me tell you, my sound was developing because before that I used a Yamaha. Well, I learned on my brother's Fender. We were used to hearing in gospel music, the Olympic wasn't really that tone. So you know what I did when I got that Olympic 5 Persuader? I too replaced it with Bartolini
wow.
And a Bartolini preamp. And that's the bass that I used on Live in Toronto. It's again, Andre Crouch. It all developed from you doing that Journey record with Andre Crouch. However, there's another older song. Man, y'all killed this, brother.
For you, what did you do? You give it all back to me, God said. Give it all back to me. That's what the Lord said. Give it all back to me. What I've done for you. What I've done for you. What I do through you. Give it all back to me. Give it all back. Everything. Give it all back. Everything. What I've done for you. What I do through you. Give it all back to me. Give it all back. Everything you got. Give it all back. Everything. What I've done for you. Yeah. What I do through you. Give it all back to me. Won't share my glory with no one else. I won't share it with no one else. 'Cause don't you
Come on, man.
Man, I was having fun, man. That was a historic moment, man. So
Man.
glad I was able to be with Pastor Crouch, man, and document that in that way before he passed away. You know?
Man, Andre Crouch.
And just trying to respect his music, you know what I mean? And just
Mano does a great job of that. You know, I think he was a great match with Andre Crouch.
Man, I appreciate you. Even like when you call my phone, it's like, yo, this Reggie. I'm like, oh my God, this dude is that dude, and he's asking me to do this, and I appreciate you giving me this platform, man, to talk about my journey and my career and how I got there and what I'm currently doing, and just dealing with from that perspective of the bass world and the artists that I play for and recordings and records.
Someone put in in the chat, someone text, hey Reg, was it Maurice Fitzgerald? I said, hey, I said, John, someone put Maurice Fitzgerald. He said, yes, that's the guy.
Wow.
And I said, man, I can't wait. I said to myself, I can't wait to tell. I said, this is gonna blow Maurice.
Wow.
Yeah,
and let me just thank everybody for the comments, and I just thank everybody for listening to me over the years. And man, I hope that this blessed you, man. Reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram. You want to holler at me about anything else as far as bass is concerned.
Yeah.
Maurice Fitzgerald.
Okay, Maurice. Thank you for that, man.
All right, thank you, man.
Love you much, man.
Love me, and likewise, bro. Love you too, man.
Stay in touch. Okay.
All right, bro.
All right, bro.
Peace.